again, I'm Christy, and I am back for April with Well-Balanced Nutrition. You may remember last month we did international flavors. We did a Moroccan spice blend, Indian spice blend, and for this month we want to keep running with that international theme. We also want to include something that we hear from a lot of you, our clients, and that is vegetarian meals. I'm not here today to pitch becoming vegan or vegetarian. That is up to you, but what I want to do is to help you enjoy more vegetables. You probably know there are a lot of reasons to do that. The USDA recently released projections for rising food prices for this coming year. You've probably already seen it these past couple of years that these prices are really going up, and meat in particular. This year, some categories of meats will see as much as a 15% price increase. The good news is that vegetables are near the bottom, probably at the bottom of that list. Little to no increases expected for those prices. So, with that said, I have a recipe today. It is a coconut chicken and lentil curry, but fear not, as I promised, more vegetarian fare. We are swapping in tofu for that chicken. Okay, so today I get to show you a little more knife work, a little more cooking than we've done before. I will get my pan warmed up to that medium-ish. We want it hot, but not like smoking hot. Quick note, I am cooking about 2 servings with this recipe, so if you're following along or you're going to go into Living Plate later, it's easy to choose your yield and how many servings you want to have. Your quantities may look a little different than mine. That said, you're going to get this tofu out of the carton. Some will come in more liquid than others. Following the lines here because it is easy to break this stuff apart. We want a nice, neat little block of tofu, don't we? We got that. Now we can open that up, and this one has a tiny bit of liquid, but really not a ton. I'll just drain that in the sink real quick. And then I have a small plate and a paper towel ready here. I'm gonna slide this out, hopefully. There we go. It did it, thank goodness. I will, because this is relatively dry, I'll just go ahead and dice it and set it aside for later use. Here we go. This one is an extra firm tofu. Maybe about an inch. You can cut them as you like, of course. We will just set these to the side while we get everything else going. We've got shiitake mushrooms today. I'm just going to pop these tough little stems off, set it inside here in this bowl. Hopefully later I will make a veggie stock with any scraps that I have left over. These mushroom stems, any onion trimmings, garlic, carrot, anything like celery too. Those are all really nice in your vegetable broths or even your chicken broth if that's what you're doing later. There we go. Slice these relatively small. Today we want our food to be, or vegetables to be relatively the same cut. They don't need to be identical cubes, but as long as everything is roughly the same, they're going to cook evenly and you'll get a nice finished product. You'll notice I am keeping my knuckles out in front, so heaven forbid my knife slips. It's better to make one of your knuckles than to make a bigger cut in the rest of your hands or your fingers, that is. You can just slide those over to the side and we'll have things that are ready to go in. Carrots, I like these with the tops on. I feel like they have the best flavor. Get what works for you. If baby carrots are easier for you, go with that. There we go. Again, these scraps, stem and all, are going to go into my scrap bowl. Make good use of all that. Good. So the idea is to get a nice flat surface so these aren't rolling around on you. Again, I'm trying to cut them so they're similar size to the mushrooms I started with. Slide those over to the side. Those are actually going to go in first, so I'll try not to mix them all together. I'll get it in here. Once again, into the vegetables. With these extra pieces, I've sliced from the top through the root. That's going to help it hold together. Then I'll just chop off a little bit of that, make it even easier. And then I'll probably do 3 slices this way. Just depends on how big your onion is. Once you get towards that root end, save that for your veggie stock. These are probably going to go in at the same time as the carrots, so we'll just push them over there together. We've also got the fresh asparagus that I've really been enjoying this time of year. Oh, again, going for similar pieces, or similarly sized pieces, that is. And as you get towards the end here, they tend to get harder, so I'll save a lot of those for the stock. It's not really fun to eat chewy asparagus. You can also, if you really want to use your asparagus, get in there with the veggie peeler, take off some of the outside. That'll remove some of that chewy woodiness at that end. Let's set that off to our side. We're filling up lots of space here. With recipes like these, you'll see certain ingredients, like eggplant was called for here. I didn't see eggplant at the store, so I didn't get it. I got the asparagus. It's an easy swap. You can swap in things like peppers, whatever really floats your boat. The only time you'll want to be careful is with harder vegetables like potatoes, winter squash. Those are totally fine to use. You'll just need more time to cook them and get them tender. Finally, we'll get into our baby bok choy here. Just slicing that all the way through so I won't get any huge pieces at the bottom. This one's going to be a rough cut on these leaves especially because it'll wilt down. And then as you get towards the root, then you want to cut the pieces a little smaller. Okay. I'll just throw these back in this bowl, get them out of the way. And the green onions, try to separate these more tender dark green ends. Those will go in with the herbs later in the process. And then these lighter, denser parts at the bottom, chop those up, and those will go in a little bit earlier in the cooking process. So we are nearly at the end of the cutting process here with all these vegetables. I know it's a lot, but it makes these recipes kind of fun and interesting. I'm just crushing this garlic with the side of my knife. Some people like to smack it, but either way is totally fine. You can use a garlic press if you like. For me, it's just one more thing that I don't enjoy cleaning. So I am just going to chop this up nice and small. The similar story with garlic and something I picked up at the store, they don't always have it, was fresh turmeric. You can use dry, the recipe calls for it. Either way is totally fine. It's an important note with the ginger, there's a lot of discussion about the best way to do it. This one is a little drier. I mean, it's still good, but the skin is kind of thick, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off today. If you get a nice fresh one with thin skin and you're doing something like a curry, leave that skin on, save yourself the trouble. I'm going to do that real quick. I'm not going to save that in my stock because I don't really want that in there. Ginger is super strong, so if you are new to it, you can start slow. Don't feel like you have to add a ton. Get our turmeric in there, just a little piece there. If you only had old turmeric, like in an old curry blend, you'll really be surprised. Like the difference if you get a fresh jar of the dried or then when you move into just a fresh piece. Just a different flavor. There we go. Now that we've got those in there, our pan is nice and hot. I'm going to grab the other one. This should move around pretty quickly, but not smoke on you. Doing a little bit of that, so we're going to hurry up. We have the carrot and the onion going in here. Just to get it nice and soft. I think with recipes like these, I feel like sometimes they can be overwhelming. I get overwhelmed too sometimes when I see that sheer number. If you plan your meals in advance, it is easier to use some of those specialty ingredients and other things. You'll see things like cilantro and turmeric popping up in other cuisines. So they're not just this one thing. You can also, in a pinch, leave out something. Maybe you got 2 kinds of onions here. Call for the recipe. Maybe you only have one. It's totally okay to just leave one off. If you need to go into your spice cabinet, get something dried, you can do that too. The flavor's a little different, but you do what works for you. Now that those are nice and soft, then you add in the rest of the ginger and the garlic and the turmeric. We will get the mushrooms in here as well. Most mushrooms work for this. White button mushrooms, baby bellas, shiitakes, they're all fine. You may even see some fun ones at the farmer's market. Whenever there's a weather change, you'll start seeing more of those popping up, and you'll see different varieties. Going. And finally, we'll get our asparagus in here. Now is probably a good time to mention that this month you've probably been hearing about gut health with well-balanced nutrition. The first thing that comes to my mind is fiber. It's something that most of us don't get enough of, and you can get a good dose of it here with the lentils that we'll be adding here in a moment. The second thing that comes to mind for me are pro and prebiotics. In this case, prebiotics. These are the things that are going to feed those nice, lovely little gut bacteria that we have. You'll get that in the asparagus and in the onions. So it's always nice to feed those little friends of ours. Now that this has had a chance to cook a little more, get all those veggies a little soft, we will add the rest of vegetable, the bok choy here. We will also add our green curry paste. This one can be a little spicy, so try it first. Know what you're dealing with. That. We're also going to add a broth. You can make your own. You can buy them. There are a lot of different ones. This one is the no chicken broth. Also got some coconut milk. I did shake it up before I opened it, I promise. And finally, lentils. In the recipe, it calls for dry, and you'll simmer this for about 20 minutes. I cheated. I got canned, so this will be ready much quicker. We'll just let it simmer for 5 to 10 minutes so those flavors come together. While that simmers, I will go ahead and chop up the rest of my green onions here, basil. This is one of those things I probably wouldn't substitute. If you're in a bind, I would just leave it out before I put a dry one in there. We have fresh cilantro. So what I'll do is I'll put these cilantro leaves and the green onions on top of the basil. I will roll it up as best I can with these little leaves. And then we're going to do what's called a chiffonade cut. It's a French term, but you're basically just getting little shreds. Nice and tiny. If you don't want any long basil pieces, you can make a couple more cuts there. And we'll let it simmer a little bit longer. Okay, so while you weren't looking, I snuck the tofu in the pan. It's had about 5-10 minutes to simmer for all the flavors to come together, vegetables to get sufficiently soft. At this point, we will add the green onions, the basil, and the cilantro just before serving. So you get that nice fresh flavor. Now that we've got that, we will test it for salt. That's going to be pretty close to perfect. Take a nice big spoon, nice shallow bowl, really shows off your food if you want to be fancy with it. Here we are. I'm going to add a little pinch of salt. Like I said, it's pretty close. And a little bit of pepper. Now, get in here, get a nice little bite, let it cool off for a sec. Don't want to get burned. And that is just really nice and really fresh. Thanks for joining me.